Let's do a little troubleshooting today. So let's just say your electric mandrel spinner isn't working. First thing you're going to check is the connection between the wire coming from the box and the spinner. So pull it out, put it back together, just make sure that that's a good connection. If it, check your spinner. If it's not working, then you take it and you pull it out and flip it over. Check your connection. Mine's working. I'm just holding it. And then, so next we're going to look at the power box. Tip it on its side. I already took the screws out, so we'll take the cover off. 2 D-size batteries. Make sure they're sitting well in here. Check it. Go ahead and take them out. This is a little tough, and you want to hold down these because sometimes they go loose, and that's fine, but you just want it to have a place to sit nicely. So put it back in, make sure it's going in the right direction. Do the other one, check your spinner. If it's not working, next we're going to check the wire. What you want to make sure you don't do when you're using your electric mandrel spinner is to have the wire twist on you too much. So don't ever hold on to the spinner up here and have it going, crazy on its own. That will twist the wire. You get too much wire twisting and you possibly break the wire inside, and that means you're going to have to get it either completely rewired or get a new box. So one of those should solve the problem. Now, your mandrels are too loose, the sleeves are too loose, and you need to fix that. So let's just say you're spinning and you grab a hold of this and the spinner is still going. That means your mandrel is way too loose. It needs to grip nicely for it to do its job properly. So we're going to take the spinner out, just like we showed in the mandrel video. We're going to tighten this up with the needle nose pliers on the little slots that are on the sleeve. We're going to tighten it up, tighten it up, tighten it up. Not too much of a squeeze, but just a light squeeze. Keep going around it in a circle. Now that's pretty tight, so I'm just going to hold on to this last sleeve to make sure that it's not going to go in. Oh, I over tightened it, so I'm going to have to loosen it up a little bit by wiggling. But it's perfect. So that is stopping. If it's still moving, but it's not moving here, it's still moving there, you got to take this out, tighten that, and go all the way down the line until it's not moving. So that's how you solve that problem. Let's say you've got too much of a wobble in your mandrel, so you hold it up against the straight line and it's got some kind of a wobble. This one's actually pretty good. But what we're going to do is we're going to start, if it's got a wobble, you start moving it, holding on to the last sleeve, move it a little bit, check for wobble, moving it, check the wobble. If it has to keep going, you're just going around in a circle, and it usually straightens itself out. But if it doesn't, go down to the next intersection and do the same thing. Twist it, twist it. Sometimes you have to go all the way down, but usually not. It's usually the mandrel, and it could be the first sleeve, but usually it's the mandrel. So hopefully that straightens it out. If it's too much, if it still has a wobble, you got to change mandrels. Your mandrels need to be stick straight, which is why I make my own. I tend to go through mandrels. Let's make a bead. First we're going to get a gather of glass on our rod and on a hot rolling mandrel. Going to lay some glass down. We're going to pull the rod of glass away from the bead slowly. If you don't, it'll go a little bit wonky. And then we're just going to keep adding gathers of glass. You see a little bit of the wobble there, and that's just got to put the hot glass rod against the hot bead and let it roll, and you can straighten it out. Still adding glass. We're going to bring it out of the heat and we're going to let the bead slump to show you how it goes off center. Just bring the hot bead back, get it hotter, and bring your glass rod as it's rolling. It'll bring it back to center. Now if you're not working hot enough and you're trying to add glass without having much of a gather, and you touch the glass to the rolling bead, kind of frustrating because it's going to get stuck. You run out of a gather of glass and then it's just stuck. So now you've got to melt the glass rod off of the bead and roll the bead, heat it back up, just bring the rod back in and help it come back to round. Now we're going to heat up the bead really good. And we're going to use the graphite marver to roll it into a tube. So easy to do, but sometimes the ends don't turn out as nice as you want them to, so we're going to heat up the end of the bead, and using a cooler rod, we're going to just touch the rod to the end of the bead and let it spin itself back straight. Using the graphite marver to straighten everything out, smooth the ends. Now we're going to heat the bead up again, and this time it's going to be too hot and we're going to work too fast. We're going to touch the rolling marver too soon and it gives it these little tread marks that will never fix itself once you start getting these bumps. So now you've got to bring it back to a graphite marver, smooth it back out. Just got to work not as fast when you're using the rolling marver. So after we've straightened the end out, we get the graphite marver and smooth everything, and then we can heat it up again, and using the rolling marver, a little bit slower this time and not as much pressure, you can shape the bead, bringing the mandrel in between the slot between the two rolling barrels. You can shape the bead, give it a nice curve. It's really fun. Now let's add a little bit more glass to one end of the bead, and I'll show you one last trick. Now we are going to add a little bit more glass to the end of the bead just to thicken it up a little bit. And then we're going to take a knife, heat up the end where you're going to go, and you can put the knife down and segment off little beads. This is a great way to get a lip on a vessel or something like that. And just heat up another section. You can do another bead. It's just a fun little trick. Now we're just going to warm up the bead, heat up that end, get it nice and straightened out. Make sure it's got a nice pucker. And we are pretty much done. So we're just going to get a nice insurance heat, make sure it's ready to go. Keeping the bead hot while we're trying to decide if we're finished or not. I think we are. So we're taking a pair of serrated pliers, and we're going to put our thumb on the last sleeve, use the pliers to pull it straight out. You don't take it completely out with the pliers, you use your hand. Otherwise, if you pull it out with the pliers, it will bounce back and smack you in the hand and burn. Ask me how I know.